School, an institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Jasmine. Thea, this side. I smiled as she turned toward my voice. I signaled Sherry to move. We were playing Blind Man's Buff, one of Thea's favorite games. Clap, Thea said. Mick clapped from where he stood, and she took another step toward him. Miss Gibson. My gaze shifted to Iris, who stood by the door. I frowned before walking toward her. Yes? What are you doing? She was wearing a serious look on her face. I used to like it when she visited on weekends. Now that she was there daily because of Mr. Jefferson, she was commenting on everything we did. We are playing a game, Iris. Thea is good and she is done with her homework. Before Iris could say anything, Thea called, I caught you. I looked down to see Thea holding my leg. Iris walked away as Thea removed her blindfold and handed it to Sherry. Sherry and Mick had warmed up over the last few days and become friends. They weren't awkward around me anymore, and they were good sports when Thea wanted to play a game. You ready? Sherry asked as she tied the cloth around my eyes. Yep, Thea counted to 10 as they spun me around. I'm right here, Thea called out as the game started. I was disoriented and it was hard to tell where I was walking. I heard a clap and Thea's giggle. I turned to my right toward the clap. The clapping changed to the left, then back to the right. Thea was giggling the whole time as I was stumbling around, not being able to find anyone. Suddenly, I didn't hear any noise from them. Thea, aren't you going to clap? I can't take a step if you don't clap. I stood where I was and waited for them to make a sound. They were being awfully silent. Mick? Sherry? Someone make a sound or clap. I was about to remove the blindfold when I heard a clap. I took a step forward, then another until I bumped into someone. I wrapped my arms around Mick as I caught him. I'd never realized Mick was this tall, maybe because I'd never been this close to him. I caught you, Mick, I said. I tensed when he pulled me flush against him. I frowned when I didn't feel the softness of the shirt he was wearing. I removed the blindfold and my eyes widened when they met with familiar hard eyes. My cheeks turned bright red when I felt his hands on my rump. No words came out. I tried to pull away, but he held me in a tight grip. My head turned from side to side to see if anyone was there. No one was there. Mick, Sherry, and Thea were nowhere to be seen. I tried to free myself, but it was no use. He just gazed at me while his hand started tracing from my bottom upward. My breasts were pressed against his chest. What are you doing, Mr. Jefferson? I finally found my voice and spoke up, trying to push his hands away. What were you doing, Miss Gibson? Trying to wrap yourself around Mick? I opened and closed my mouth as he glared at me. We were playing a game, Mr. Jefferson. I thought you were Mick, and I wrapped my arms around him to catch him. I don't want you playing with any of the men here. If I see you playing with Mick or any other man, I gulped at his warning. I understood the underlying threat. I was playing with Sherry, Thea, and Mick, Mr. Jefferson. I wasn't playing just with Mick. He clenched his jaw, and his eyes hardened, telling me not to utter another word. I stayed silent as his grip on my hips tightened, which caused something inside me to flare. I was breathing heavily because of our closeness and his gaze. His gaze was different than the looks I got from other men. Even though I spoke with the bodyguards here, I'd never felt the nervousness and fire that I did when I was with Mr. Jefferson. 15 minutes to get ready. Meet me in the hall with Thea. I nodded my head and he squeezed my hip. Words. Yes, Mr. Jefferson. We stood there for another minute before he left me standing in the middle of the room with flushed cheeks, waiting for Thea and the others to come back. Flower, we need to go and get ready. Papa wants us to meet him in the hall. Thea rushed toward me and wrapped her hand around mine, pulling me with her. Thea changed out of her PJs into a pair of jeans and a red t-shirt from the collection of clothes we'd bought yesterday. I changed into my skinny blue jeans and an olive green cropped hoodie, and we grabbed our shoes and put them on as quickly as we could. Even rushing, it took an extra 10 minutes because 15 minutes just wasn't enough time to make myself and a 7-year-old presentable. By the time we walked to the hall, Mr. Jefferson was already waiting with Iris. Without saying a word, they started walking. Thea and I shared a look before we followed them outside. Mr. Jefferson's driver was already in the car, ready to go. I stood there awkwardly, wondering if I should take shotgun or the back seat. My question was answered when Iris opened the passenger side door and Mr. Jefferson got in the back. "I want to sit by the window." Thea looked at me with puppy dog eyes. That had me sitting in between father and daughter. I still didn't know where we were going, but the weather was slightly chilly. Good thing I'd made Thea wear her jacket. Thea was looking out the window, and her father was busy with his phone. Iris was working on her iPad. I played with the hem of my hoodie, as I didn't have anything else to do. The whole ride was silent, except for Thea's expressions of awe. Occasionally, Mr. Jefferson's arm brushed against mine. The car stopped, and it seemed that we'd reached our destination. My eyes scanned our surroundings, and I saw we were at some sort of school. Thea held my hand when we got out of the car. We looked around while Iris spoke with Mr. Jefferson. "Mr. Jefferson, this school ranked second in the whole country. They have superb facilities, and the location would be convenient for traveling," Iris explained to Mr. Jefferson. There weren't any students around. I guessed it was a school break. Mr. Jefferson started walking, and we followed him inside. I looked at the halls filled with portraits and pictures made by students. We were in what must have been the administration block. The whole campus was huge and beautiful. It was divided into 4 blocks: kindergarten, primary school, middle school, and high school. We continued walking until we were in the primary school block. There were several people there, mostly parents arranging their children's admission. For some reason, we didn't go to the principal's office. Iris wasn't anywhere to be seen, and Thea and I followed Mr. Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson checked the halls and all the classrooms in the block. "Mr. Jefferson, why are we here?" I asked him. "Thea will be starting 2nd grade next week, and you will be teaching here." "Teaching here?" He turned around with an irritated look. "I'm allowing Thea to study in a private school like normal kids. You will be teaching here because she is your responsibility." "But, Mr. Jefferson, why do I have to teach here? I can drop her off and pick her up every day, but please, I don't want to teach a bunch of kids," I said with a look of horror. "They can be a handful." "I'm sure you'll get used to it. I don't want to hear any arguments." He walked away, heading toward Iris, who'd just appeared with a file in her hands. "I'm going to this school?" Thea asked with excitement. "Yes, baby, this is your school. Your dad is sending you here to be in class with other kids. Do you like it?" I asked her, crouching down to her level. "I love it, and you're going to be there with me." She wrapped her arms around my neck, and I chuckled, hugging her back. "We got her uniform and books, sir," Iris informed Mr. Jefferson. "Anything else?" he asked.
"Her shoes and other necessities will be delivered, sir."
I frowned. I didn't want someone else to get Thea's things. It was her first time going to school, and everything should be her choice. But, Mr. Jefferson, it would be better if Thea and I went to the mall to buy them. I mean, it's Thea's first time, and she should be allowed to choose her own things. Iris glared at me. "Miss Gibson, you took Thea out yesterday. It's not good for Thea, and please don't get used to the idea of leaving the house," she said, while I tried my best not to roll my eyes. I waited for Mr. Jefferson to say something, but he just stood there, watching my face. Is he not going to say anything? "Miss White, hold down the fort." Iris opened and closed her mouth while I tried to understand what he meant.
"Are you coming or not?"
he asked me. I snapped out of my thoughts, then followed Mr. Jefferson. He took the keys from the driver and got into the car. "Get in." Thea pushed me toward the front seat when I started to sit with her in the back, so I took the passenger seat. "Seatbelt." I pulled out my phone to make a list of what Thea needed and asked Mr. Jefferson to drive to the mall. Last time I'd checked, there was a bookstore on the 2nd floor. I turned around to look at Thea. "Thea, do you have a school bag?" "Nope," I added it to the list. Mr. Jefferson stayed quiet while I asked Thea what else she needed and what kind of bag she wanted. When we walked into the mall, I noticed people were looking at Mr. Jefferson and me. It was kind of awkward, but I started walking fast so I could ignore their looks. First, we walked to the book covers. I wanted to take care of small things first. "Which ones do you like?" I asked Thea, pointing out covers in brown, orange, green, purple, and red. "Brown." Wouldn't have been my choice when I was a kid, but I admire someone who can make a quick decision. We then went looking for book labels, pens, pencils, erasers, and scissors. Even though she had all those things at home, we bought them because she wanted to have everything new for her first day of school. Mr. Jefferson followed us wherever we went. "What kind of bag do you want?" I asked her. "I want a Spider-Man bag." I chuckled before picking up the Spider-Man bag. "It will match my pencil box?" She grinned, taking her new bag. "Yes, baby, it will." "How much time will this take?" Mr. Jefferson asked, looking at me and Thea. "We have to get her a lunchbox, a water bottle, and shoes," I told him. He gave me an "Are you serious?" look. "Yes, I'm serious. Make it fast." "We need to go to another store, Mr. Jefferson," I said, walking toward the counter. He took the basket from my hands and headed to the cashier to pay. "Call me Theodore." I blinked. I was in shock hearing him say that. He wanted me to call him Theodore. By the time we finished shopping, Thea and I were hungry. Mr. Jefferson, Theodore, was busy texting. "Mr. Jefferson, Theodore, can we grab something from Domino's?" "We can eat at a restaurant," he replied. Thea and I pouted because we loved Domino's. "But we like Domino's." He looked at us with his dangerous eyes. I was about to tell him not to get angry when he agreed. "This is the first time," Thea whispered when we sat down. "First time." "Papa and I never go out to eat. He's taking me out for the first time." Her eyes shone with happiness. "Then let's make your papa take us out every month," I whispered back. "We can?" "Yes, we can, baby." Mr. Jefferson/Theodore went to order. After dinner, I tucked Thea into bed. I washed up and went to bed early, too, wanting to be rested for the next day. I groaned loudly as I shifted my sleeping position in annoyance, but the alarm didn't stop. I slammed a pillow over my ear, but that was snatched away. "What in the hell?" I yelled, getting up. My eyes widened in shock, and I was wide awake now. Mr. Jefferson, Theodore, as he'd ordered me to call him when we were alone, was standing in front of me with a serious face. I sat there, not knowing what to say. How had he gotten into my room? I'd locked the door last night. I was so deep in thought that I forgot about my sleeping attire. I remembered them when I saw the look Theodore was giving me. His eyes were dark, and I looked down to see my uneven tank top exposing half my chest. The strap had slipped off my shoulder, and my shorts had ridden up, giving him a clear view of my thighs. I quickly stood up, pulling the strap back in place. "What are you doing here, Theodore?"